Okay, hi guys. We are going to go over history lesson number 7 today, and we're going to actually jump ahead because we were talking about Columbus and all of that, but now we're going to jump ahead all the way to the 1600s. So at this point in history, there were colonies being formed in the New World, so in America, but many of them were struggling to survive. Okay? Now, in our days, in these days that we live in now, a person can believe whatever he or she wants. We have religious freedom given to us by, well, at least spelled out in the First Amendment. So we can believe whatever we want, and we can believe it in terms of politics or religion. A person can belong to any political party, or they can belong to none. And you can write and make speeches about your opinions. Probably no one will listen to them, but certainly you will not be imprisoned for mere opinions. It's the same with religion. A person has the right to go to any church he or she wants to go to, or none. And a person can write books or preach sermons, and no one will stop them. But in the days of King James, this was in England in the 1600s. In those days, there was not religious freedom. There was very little freedom, either in thought or action, in religion or politics. Now, King James did not even want the colonies to be self-governing, and when they tried to do that, he took their charters away. It was the same for religion. In England, at the Reformation, the king had been made head of the church. Can you believe that? That the king was made head of the church? It would be like Biden saying, I'm going to be the head of your church now. And if people did not believe what the king and clergy told them to believe, they were sure sooner or later to be punished for it. Now, in England, more and more people began to think for themselves on matters of religion. More and more people found it difficult to believe as king and clergy wished them to believe. Some of them found the Church of England was too much like the old Church of Rome. They wanted to do away with all that pomp and ceremony and have things more simple. They didn't want to separate from the church, but they wanted to purify it. So they got the name Puritans. And so those were the people there's going to be a question about this in your writing. So Puritans were people that still believed in the church, but they wanted to make it pure. They wanted to get rid of all the stuff that they had borrowed from the Catholic churches and make it more pure and simple. Now, there were other people that thought the church couldn't be purified anymore, and they wanted to leave it completely, and they wanted to set up a church of their own. So they were called separatists because they wanted to separate completely from the church. Now, these separatists did not want to have bishops and priests, and they did not like the king as head of the church. So instead of going to church, they used to meet together in private houses. They wanted to pray to God in the manner that they thought was right. This, of course, was considered treason and foul wickedness. So on all hands, the separatists were persecuted. They were fined and imprisoned. Some of them were even hanged. But all this persecution was in vain. And in vain means it was kind of pointless because the number of separatists, instead of decreasing, increased as the years went on. In England, there was a young man named William Bradford. This is a picture of William Bradford. He was making a difficult decision at the time. He was wondering if he should leave his home country forever. William Bradford was a separatist. Bradford and his friends had given up hope that the Church of England would ever be purified. So they separated from the English church and they had their own services. And then, of course, King James forced the separatists to pay high taxes. He told the separatists that they could not use church buildings. So William and his friends had to meet in barns and stables. And William knew that the king's soldiers would take any opportunity to arrest him and throw him into jail. So he and the other separatists decided to leave England and go to a country where they could worship God in their own way and in freedom. Where would they go? and they decided Holland. The homeland of the Dutch welcomed Protestants, and since Holland was so close to England, the journey would not be long. So William Bradford and other separatists packed their belongings and families into a tiny wooden ship and sailed across the North Sea to Holland. They settled down in a small Dutch town called Leiden. I'm gonna spell that out for you. It's called Leiden. So that's where they settled, in Leiden, which was in Holland. Here, the separatists were free to meet together in churches. They didn't have to pay extra taxes or worry about being arrested. William Bradford soon married another English separatist, a young woman named Dorothy, and together they had a son named John. But then in Leiden, little John Bradford and the other separatist children, they learned to speak Dutch, and they played with Dutch friends, and they learned to wear wooden shoes and to skate on icy canals, and they started to forget English, and they started to forget their separatist beliefs as well. This is a quote from William Bradford. He said, "Some of the children were drawn away from their parents. Some became soldiers, others ran away to sea. Others took even worse courses, further from the ways of their fathers." So William Bradford and the other separatist fathers wanted to take their families to a country where they could raise their children as good English separatists. But they couldn't go back to England, so where would they go? "What about North America?" they said to each other. "The English who settled in Jamestown are free to do as they please. If we travel to North America, we too can establish our own colony, a place where every citizen obeys God." Okay, so I'm going to leave it there for now, and it's going to be continued. In the next story, we're going to hear about how they traveled to America. All right, so that was the beginning. I hope you enjoyed it. Bye.